I made a list yesterday on my computer of different accommodations that I utilize as an autistic person that you might not really expect, or that might not really seem like accommodations, but that actually help me significantly. And before I go any further, I just want to preface this video by saying some of these might not be helpful to you, some of these might not be available or accessible to you, some of these might not be necessarily accommodations for you, but hopefully there's a few from the list that you can take and maybe incorporate into your own life just to make your life a little bit easier. Let's go ahead and start with the first one, and that is utilizing grocery delivery and food delivery services. I signed up for a Walmart Plus subscription back when they had like a half off for the entire year deal, and I just have to say it has been so incredibly helpful for me. I find planning out my meals and planning out which day I'm going to the grocery store and all of that, I find that to be honestly like so overwhelming when I feel like it doesn't really need to be. And by being able to order these items when I need them, and not having to step foot in an overstimulating and overwhelming grocery store is really helpful. And then utilizing food delivery also. I try to set aside like a budget I try to set aside a budget so that I'm able to use like Uber Eats or DoorDash a couple times a week if necessary. And to be honest, there are some days where like going to cook a meal or even just like figuring out what I'm going to eat from the pantry or from the fridge, where it just feels like really overwhelming and like almost impossible. And if you get it, then you get it, where it's like no matter how hard I like have the motivation, or no matter how hard I try to like go and do it, there's just those days where I am feeling so burnt out and so tired and so overwhelmed where I need to order something to eat in order to actually eat a meal that day. And that's not every day. It's less often than I'm not doing it every single day, and that's like the thing here. So by utilizing the grocery delivery, I have some like pre-planned meals in there that I can make. And another thing that I'll say too real quick is I try to find things that don't have a lot of steps to cook. So using like a lot of like frozen vegetables, using things where I don't need to, or like making meals where I don't need all kinds of ingredients and stuff is also really helpful for me. But back to the food delivery thing, I like to, most of the time, I like to make sure that there is like a promo on one of the apps, and I go through like all of them, like Postmates, Uber, DoorDash, Grubhub, to see if there are any promotions. And usually, most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, it kind of evens out. I realize where if there is like one of those like 40% off, it makes it so the price of what I'm ordering is pretty much the same price as if I went and got it myself. So I kind of use that to justify using food delivery, but again, it's not something I do every day, and I kind of reserve these for either special occasions or, like I said, those days where the thought of going into the kitchen and figuring out what I'm going to eat for dinner, when that is like so overwhelming, when I'm dealing with like some stress, or when I'm just like having one of those really challenging executive functioning days. And then the next thing, number 2 on the list, it kind of goes along with this, and that's making sure I always have safe foods on hand. And that means at home, or if I'm leaving the house, I'll take something with me. My safe food is anything that's vegan and protein. So lifting weights and exercising is one of my special interests, and one of the things that I enjoy doing mostly every single day. And what comes along with that is making sure I get enough protein. And as a plant-based eater, it's hard to have the guarantee that when I'm outside of the house that there's going to be options for me that are protein based. And so maybe it's like a protein bar or some protein chips or even like a protein shake, just making sure that I always have my essentials in the fridge or in the pantry. And right now some of those things are vegan jerky. I always make sure I have some of that because that's easy, quick, easy protein that I can get. Protein powder, protein bars, and like main sources of protein. So like seitan, which is like wheat gluten protein, tofu. Those are like the main things right now. So making sure I have those on hand also is really helpful for those days where it's harder to like figure out what I'm going to eat. I can just be like, oh, okay, I have this. It takes less than 5 minutes to heat up. I think I can do it. And it just makes it easier overall. Okay, moving on to number 3, unrelated to what we were just talking about, but this is an accommodation that I have found to be challenging to do because it takes a lot of practice, but also has huge rewards and benefits for my mental health, and that is making sure that I'm setting social boundaries. Saying no if I'm really feeling tired that day, to maybe there's like a dinner plan, or if someone asks me to go get coffee or something like that, and making sure that I'm being really honest with myself and understanding like, okay, how much of a toll is this going to take on me? And how much energy do I have right now? Do I have the capacity to do something like this? And honestly, as I start to unmask and as I start to find ways to take care of myself more, I'm realizing that a lot of the times, not all the time, but a lot of the times the answer is no, I'm not going to be able to do this right now. Or if I am going to do this, I need to set the boundary of, okay, we need to make sure that we're going to this place I'm familiar with, that we can sit outside if it is really loud inside, that I know who's coming along, just so I can have the expectations set for me. That also seems to make it a little bit easier. But setting those social boundaries is huge, and it involves setting a boundary with other people, like I said, like saying no to certain things or asking for those specific accommodations with whatever you're doing, or also setting boundaries with yourself and being like, today is not a good day for this. I know that if I say yes to this, that afterwards I will feel tired and drained, and it could lead to maybe like possibly a shutdown later on this week, or even like a meltdown if I'm really having a really challenging week. So it's huge, but it takes a lot of practice to do, especially if you're new to setting boundaries. And I think that that'd be actually a really good video idea to talk about more, like setting boundaries specifically as an autistic person. Number 4 is to research before doing something new or going somewhere new. And this is really helpful for me because, kind of like I mentioned in the previous one, I like to know what to expect. I like to know like what it looks like in there. So I'll go, let's just say, for example, like I'm going to a new restaurant and I don't know what to expect. Okay, so I'm gonna go on Yelp. I'm gonna look at like all the pictures of the inside. I'm gonna look at the menu so I know what I'm gonna eat. Maybe I'll even look at like the Google Street View to know what the parking situation is like. And that is really helpful because it kind of helps me get an idea in my mind of also like, okay, is this going to be something that is going to be sensory friendly for me? Is this going to be something that is going to be an easy process to get to? If it's like downtown and you have to park and then walk and it's just like too many steps, that might be too much. But if it has like a parking lot right in front, just things like that, it makes it easy because whenever I do something new, or whenever I do something outside of my routine, it causes me a lot of anxiety. It causes me to almost like perseverate and ruminate on it because I don't know what to expect. I don't know what's going to happen. And just by having just a little bit more information of knowing like what the inside looks like, what the aesthetic is like, if they have like outside seating, if there's something I can eat on the menu, it really helps kind of calm this anxiety, and it makes it easier overall. Number 5 is blocking out time after socializing. So let's say that I do say yes to doing something social because I do feel like I have capacity. Even when I have capacity to do something social, it still takes a huge toll on me. It still makes me tired. And so I will make sure that I'm giving myself ample time to rest, or to maybe have like a no demand day after if I really feel like I need it, just in case, so that if it does really drain me, which it's always hard to predict how I'm going to feel after, but most of the times it does feel exhausting, or it does feel tiring afterwards. And so making sure that in my schedule I have that time written out, that this is me time, this is my alone time, this is my time to recharge. That's also really helpful for me. Number 6, this is one where I started the video by saying this might not work for everybody, but I'm just doing a list based on me and my life. And number 6 is creating a flexible work schedule. So I knew from like when I was in high school that I couldn't work under someone. I couldn't have an employer. I needed to be self-employed. And this was even before I knew that I was autistic. And now looking back, I can be like, okay, I can see why I needed that. But having a flexible work schedule for me is so helpful. I tend to follow the basic work schedule of Monday through Friday. But being self-employed, I sometimes also have to do work like on Saturday and Sunday. But what comes along with that also is the freedom to, kind of going back to what I said about blocking out time, the freedom to take some time off if I need, to restructure my schedule. Maybe it is like a really challenging executive functioning day for me, and I can be like, okay, I can move this over here, I can move this on that day, and now I only have a few really easy tasks to do today. It makes it so that I don't need to constantly be pushing myself past the point of my capacity, where it feels like I'm just like so depleted with energy. And this kind of helps me so that I can kind of stay balanced all the time, and I can make sure that I'm not overexerting myself when I don't need to be. So that's also helpful for me. Number 7 is daily movement as a non-negotiable. Whether it is exercising for me, which I do mostly 6 days a week, and then on those rest days I'll still make sure that I stretch or maybe go for a walk or something, because I know for me personally, if I don't move my body, I start to feel cooped up. I start to feel like getting in my head too much, getting in my thoughts. I start to feel anxious and ungrounded. And I feel like I kind of just feel restless. Like I have energy I need to burn. And so by scheduling that into my day and making sure that it is pretty much a non-negotiable for me that I do some form of daily movement, even if it isn't going to the gym, but if it's something small, if it is one of those days where I am feeling more tired, I know that I have to do that. I know that I need to do that for my mental health. Like not like forget the physical health. Like I need to do that for my mental health. Number 8, it kind of goes along with number 7 because exercise and lifting weights is one of my special interests, but allotting time to indulge in your special interests. For me, I like to learn more about fitness. So a lot of that actually comes through YouTube videos. So making sure that I'm giving myself time, scheduling time where I can just get so hyper focused on my special interest. Um, because like as autistic people, our special interests bring us so much joy, and I feel like for a lot of us, like our lives are kind of based around those things, and like we have to make sure that we allow ourselves to partake in the things that really bring us joy. I think that finding ways to cultivate joy is really important, and our special interests are what make our lives worth living. So making sure that you're finding time, doesn't have to be every day. It might not be every day, and it probably won't be every day depending on how busy you are, but just making sure that you're setting aside time to indulge in your special interest, whatever your special interest might be. Number 9 is using email or text as opposed to phone calls. I don't like phone calls. They're really hard for me because the pressure of it, especially if it's something that's like really important, or like let's say it's something that goes along with my business and I need to make sure that I'm really putting a lot of thought into it and making sure I'm processing it. I can actually do that better when it is in written form. It gives me some time to process because of my delayed processing. It gives me some time to formulate a response that is well thought out and has a lot of intention behind it. Whereas like on phone calls, it's like I don't know when it's my turn to speak. I have a hard time processing everything that they're saying because of the pressure and the time constraints of it. And it's just easier to communicate for me through email or text, and it might be for you too. So there have been times where I have to be like, would it be possible if we can please communicate this via email as opposed to a phone call? It's just easier for me to process these things. And usually people are okay with that. Sometimes we just have to ask for it. You know, it is hard if we're not used to like speaking up for what we need, but it's getting easier for me, so that's good. And then number 10, this is the last thing on the list, and that's making sure that for me, I need daily alone time. You might not need daily alone time, but I can pretty much guarantee that you need some form of alone time. And for me, that's daily. I work from home, and then my fiance doesn't, so I get that alone time during the day when I'm working. And just like being in my own quiet space is how I recharge. Being alone with myself is how I recharge. There's no added pressure, there's no added demands, there's no perceiving of me, and I can just like exist as I am, allowing myself to fully recharge, because that is one of the ways that I recharge, is by making sure that I am alone. So this is just the list I came up with yesterday of like kind of like unexpected or like accommodations that you might not have thought of as accommodations, but that actually are accommodations, because these things make my life so much easier for me, and they make it so that I'm able to kind of, like I mentioned, like just stay balanced, where I don't keep having those like dips in energy, and where I feel like I can't keep my head above water. And if you have any other like accommodations that might not really seem like accommodations, but that actually are accommodations that you'd like to share, please let me know in the comments. So thank you for watching the video.